Legendary footsteps, Sima Qian, the great Chinese historian. On a still evening, the air thick with the scent of incense and burning sandalwood, Sima Qian sat alone in a dimly lit chamber. The flickering candlelight cast long shadows on the parchment scattered before him, pages filled with the fruits of a lifetime of labor. The crinkle of paper accompanied each stroke of his brush, the bristles gliding against the soft surface like a whisper of his innermost thoughts. Outside his window, the distant murmur of the Han capital, Chang'an, floated into the room. The sound of muffled footsteps on cobblestones mixed with the quiet rustle of leaves in the cool breeze, creating an atmosphere that felt electric, almost alive. It was a world that had changed dramatically, yet the weight of history pressed heavily upon his shoulders. Then came the knock, a firm, urgent rap at the door, startling him from his reverie. His heart raced as he rose, the cool air swirling against his skin as he approached the entrance. "Who disturbs me at such an hour?" he queried, his voice steady yet strained with curiosity. "Master Sima," a young voice called, catching his attention. The urgency in the boy's tone was palpable. "There's news. Your father." The boy hesitated, the words choking in his throat, the gravity of the situation suffocating. In that moment, the world around Sima seemed to narrow, the sounds of the city fading into a dull roar, replaced by the pounding of his own heart. "What of my father?" he pressed, his voice rising, filled with the anxiety that clawed at him. "He has passed," the boy stammered, the chill of the news cutting through the warmth of the room like a blade. The weight of loss bore down upon Sima's chest as despair washed over him. Sima Qian staggered backward, his hands gripping the edge of the table as waves of grief assaulted him. The scent of sandalwood that had once brought him comfort now felt suffocating. He fought to control his breathing, the air turning thick and heavy as he grappled with the enormity of the moment. "Leave me," Sima commanded softly, the warmth of his voice now stripped of its power. The boy slipped away, leaving the door ajar, allowing a cold breeze to flow in as Sima returned to his desk. Here, he would honor his father's legacy, not only through mourning but through the steadfast commitment to the monumental task laid before him. This was the night history would be forged anew. Born in 145 BCE, Sima Qian's childhood was not one of ease. The son of a historian, he was steeped in the rich history of his ancestors but was also subject to the ultimate pressure of expectation. He could feel the rigid texture of the scrolls between his small fingers, the ink slightly smudged from handling, each character representing both knowledge and burden. His father, Sima Tan, often mused, "A historian must wield the quill like a sword, for the truth is a weapon against the forces of forgetting." The family's financial struggles were as palpable as the chill of an autumn night. Sima Qian would often hear the hushed conversations between his parents, worries about debts, the inability to afford proper schooling, the very real threat of poverty wafting through their home like the bitter scent of burnt rice. The tension in their voices was a constant reminder that history is often steeped in desperation. One night, after a particularly disheartening day where the family had gone without food, young Sima overheard a quarrel between his parents. His mother's voice quivered with frustration. "Your father clings to his dreams like a beggar to his bowl. What will become of us?" Sima's heart twisted in his chest as he listened, the roughness of the wooden table against his palm grounding him in reality. He wanted to comfort her, to tell her that he would make things better, that he would find a way to honor their family name. Yet, the weight of despair hung heavy over his small frame, threatening to crush his spirit before it ever had a chance to soar. The cold bite of failure was something he learned to dread early on. As he studied, observing the world around him, he often wondered if he would ever rise above the life of hardship that surrounded him. The reality of his circumstances was stark, a chill that seeped into his bones, igniting a fire within him, a need to succeed, to document history not just for himself but to leave a legacy for those who came after. Years passed, and Sima Qian dedicated himself to the study of history and the art of writing, yet with each scroll he completed, there came doubt. In his early 20s, he faced a significant setback that almost shattered his resolve. The manuscript he had spent months crafting, a detailed account of the previous dynasties, was stolen. He was at his desk, the scent of ink and parchment filling the air, when he realized it was missing. The room seemed to grow colder, shadows stretching ominously as panic set in. "No, no, no," he whispered, rushing about, checking every crevice and corner. Each minute that passed felt like an eternity, his heart pounding in his chest like a war drum. When he finally accepted the truth of the loss, despair enveloped him like a heavy fog. "What have I done?" he lamented, gripping his hair in frustration. The silence of his study was deafening, amplified by the thudding in his chest. Was all my work for nothing? Sima Qian contemplated throwing in the towel. He imagined a life devoid of history, a mere shadow of his father's legacy. As he stood amidst the chaotic remnants of his efforts, he could almost hear his mother's voice again, laced with disappointment. "You will become nothing if you do not rise." The word struck hard, pulling him back from the brink. It was in that moment of vulnerability that he found clarity. Sima Qian paced the room, the floorboards creaking beneath him, the scent of ink mingling with the dust of forgotten dreams. If history must be recorded, then it must be done with tenacity, he declared, a fierce determination igniting within him. He resolved to begin anew, propelled not by the fear of failure, but by the relentless need to honor the stories that deserve to be told. After the loss of his manuscript, Sima Qian devised a strategic approach to storytelling that would ultimately define his work. He realized that the world of history was vast, and to capture its essence, he had to engage not only with the elite but also with the common man. He began to travel, moving through towns and villages across China, each stop a new chapter in his journey. Sima Qian would often sit among the people, listening to their narratives, their joys and sorrows, their victories and defeats. "Tell me your story," he would ask, leaning forward eagerly, his eyes glinting with curiosity. The older men would chuckle, their faces weathered but warm. "Ah, young man, we are but small fish in a mighty river. What do you seek from us?" "Truth," he would reply, the sincerity in his voice touching something deep within them. The stories flowed like the rivers he crossed, rich in texture and nuanced in depth. With each tale, he felt the pulse of history resonate through him. His tactic of collecting oral histories became a cornerstone of his work. By blending the accounts of peasants with the records of nobility, he crafted a more holistic view of Chinese history. This was not merely a collection of dates and events, it was an exploration of human experience in all its forms. Through his method, Sima Qian transformed individual stories into a grand narrative. He meticulously organized them, focusing on themes of morality, governance, and the lessons that could be gleaned from the past. Each entry was infused with a sense of urgency, a tactile connection to the lives of those who had come before him. In conversations with scholars and officials, he would emphasize, historian must not only record events but also capture the essence of humanity itself. Each life is a thread in the great fabric of history. His strategy was revolutionary, challenging the traditional confines of historiography and establishing a model that would influence generations to come. The year was 91 BCE, and Sima Qian found himself amidst a different kind of struggle, a battle against time, against erasure. As he sat in his study, the summer heat pressing against him, he felt the tension crackling in the air. The Han court was embroiled in political turmoil, and his position as court historian was under threat. The smell of sweat and anxiety wafted through the palace, heavy like the weight of anxious whispers shared among the officials. As Sima Qian listened to their discussions, he realized that the very records he sought to preserve were at risk of being buried beneath the shifting sands of power. Around him, the courtiers spoke in hurried tones, their voices edged with panic. If the emperor discovers the truth behind the court's actions, it could spell disaster for us all, one minister insisted, his eyes darting nervously. The history we write must reflect strength, not discord. But Sima Qian understood that to allow history to be rewritten through the lens of power was to betray the very essence of his purpose. He rose from his chair, determination solidifying within him like iron. "The truth is not a weapon to wield, it is a beacon to guide us," he proclaimed, his voice steady, cutting through the murmur of dissent. Despite the dangers, he immersed himself in research, seeking out documents and testimonies from those who had lived through the events he sought to encapsulate. He worked day and night, the ink staining his fingers as he wrote down their accounts, the heat of the day bleeding into the coolness of night. As he penned the final chapters of his grand work, records of the grand historian the stakes could not have been higher. Outside, the streets buzzed with activity, but inside, Sima Qian felt a solitude that resonated like a deep drum, reminding him of the isolation that came with pursuing truth. He envisioned his father, whose shadow loomed large, and dedicated each sentence to him. In the pursuit of truth, one must be willing to embrace the storm, he mused, absorbing the weight of his own words. With each stroke of the brush, he felt the history of China unfurl before him, a living entity demanding to be documented. However, not all who witnessed his dedication were allies. The political landscape shifted rapidly, and soon, jealousy and fear crept into the hearts of those around him. His boldness in seeking the truth ruffled feathers at court, and whispers turned into accusations. "Who does Sima Qian think he is?" an official sneered, his voice dripping with disdain. "A mere historian presuming to challenge the authority of the emperor." He will learn that the quill is mightier than the sword only when it is met with the edge of the blade. The betrayal came swift and brutal. Accused of treason for his outspoken views on the past and present, Sima Qian found himself imprisoned. The cold stone walls of his cell closed in around him, the musty air heavy with despair. In the darkness, he reflected on the price of truth. As he paced his small cell, the clinking of iron bars sounded a fatalistic rhythm against his resolve. I must endure this, he told himself, determination etched into his very being. To abandon my work now would be to betray the voices that entrusted me with their stories. Then came a familiar voice, a fellow historian who had once admired Sima Qian's fervor. You cannot let them win, Sima. You have the power to change history, but at what cost? He whispered, his breath echoing in the dim light. Sima Qian looked him in the eye, a fire igniting within. To live in fear of the truth is to live in chains far worse than these, he retorted, indicating the iron bars encasing him. I will see my work completed, even if it costs me everything. Eventually. Sima Qian's steadfast commitment to his craft earned him a semblance of freedom, though it came with a heavy price. He was compelled to submit to public humiliation, a fate he accepted with a heavy heart. As he stood before the crowd, exposed and vulnerable, he felt the chill of betrayal washing over him. But in that moment, he resolved to not only complete his work but to ensure that the stories of the common people were not lost to the tides of time. Years later, Sima Qian emerged from the depths of his struggles, a changed man, yet unwavering in his belief that history should be a bridge between the past and present. Records of the Grand Historian was completed, a monumental work that set the foundation for future historians. As he stood overlooking the river that flowed through Chang'an, he reflected on the journey that brought him here. The water glistened in the soft light of dawn, the sounds of life awakening around him, birds chirping, the soft rustle of leaves, the distant laughter of children playing. The scent of morning dew hung in the air, fresh and invigorating. It is our nature to learn from the past, he mused, his fingers grazing the cool surface of the water. Every joy, every sorrow, every mistake is a lesson woven into the fabric of our existence. Without history, we are lost. Without truth, we are nothing. Sima Qian understood that his legacy was not just the book he had authored but the very philosophy he had championed. History is a reflection of humanity itself, complex, flawed, and beautiful in its imperfection. He had documented not just the triumphs of emperors but the struggles of the forgotten, ensuring that their voices would live on. In the years that followed, Sima Qian's work would influence countless historians and scholars, his philosophy carving a path for future generations. He had navigated through the trials of betrayal and loss, emerging not merely as a historian but as a steward of truth. As he turned to leave the river, a sense of resolve filled him, no longer buoyed by the weight of his past but propelled by the promise of the future. To understand our humanity is to understand our place in history, he whispered to the wind, a vow echoing across the landscape. He knew that, through his labor, the footsteps of those who came before would not be forgotten, but instead, cherished and remembered for generations to come. Thus, Sima Qian remains a monumental figure in the annals of history, not simply for his writings but for his unwavering belief in the necessity of truth and the power of storytelling. His journey is a stark reminder of the sacrifices made in the pursuit of knowledge and the